band bent over row is a common exercise performed in swimming dryland programs. The idea behind it is to try and mimic motions that the athlete or swimmer is doing in the water. However, doing these exercises that are such swimming specific can likely lead to injuries due to the excessive overuse nature of the sport. In swimming, athletes and swimmers will use their arms thousands of times throughout a season and millions of times throughout their career. This excessive motion over time is one of the biggest contributors to the high injury rate of the shoulders within the sport of swimming. Although there's not acute injuries like concussions or ACL tears in swimming, overuse injuries are the highest among other comparable sports, and it's estimated 60 to 80% of swimmers will experience shoulder pain and injury once throughout their lifetime. Now you may think, how could a harmless bent over row possibly contribute to that? But if we're doing more and more repetitions, just like what they're doing or the swimmers are doing in the water, that's going to increase that stress, and over time that can lead to injury due to fatigue, influencing or causing faulty movement patterns, or just excessive rubbing and general stress in that area. So, like all these exercise or dryland mistake exercises that I've posted before, in the right context, with the right person, with the right volume, with the right form, can be done correctly. Say you're trying to teach someone to do a correct movement or to get a correct early vertical form. Sure, the band bent over row can be done safely and correctly. However, how it's typically prescribed, just like in the swim bench application, it can be a little bit too much and a little too hazardous. Another scenario that this may be appropriate for, like the swim bench, is if an athlete can't get to the water that often. Sure, this may mimic it or be a little closer than doing something else on land. Once again, it's still quite far from the actual motion in the water, but nonetheless it is mimicking that internal rotation and shoulder stress over time. And one other point is the swim bench, even though I've written about it previously and how it, once again, can increase risk at the shoulder, this exercise, when done incorrectly, can not only increase the shoulder injury risk, but also the low back injury risk that we'll go over now. So for this setup, most of the common errors here, you'll have athletes bent over rounded position, pulling forward like this, or trying to catch and go forward like this. Okay, this is the common position that they'll be in. Spine rounded, overarching back, shoulders rounded forward, causing impingement at the shoulders, and then we're just once again doing that overuse motion at the shoulder. Okay, you may think I'm over-exaggerating this poor position, but you should go to a swim club that's doing this, say, for a minute, 2 minutes at a time, and this is what you'll see 75 to 90% of the swimmers doing. Okay, once again, increasing risk at the shoulders due to the volume, increasing the risk of shoulder injury due to the poor positioning, closing space for our rotator cuff tendons to slide and glide, as well as putting excessive stress on the low back for being in this poor position. Okay, swimmers are already known for poor postures, mainly because they use their pecs a lot and lats a lot, which the pecs shorten and round the shoulders, and the lats internally rotate the shoulders, causing this poor positioning. But we can't keep perpetuating this poor position because over time, these little stresses add up, and are one reason why we have this high overuse injury rate within the sport. Okay? So those are some of the poor things that I do see with this exercise. Like I said, it can be done correctly if done properly. So let's go over the proper form of this exercise. So first and foremost, an athlete needs to know how to hip hinge or hinge directly from the hip. This may sound easy, you may assume every swimmer can do it, but geez, I work with a lot of clubs and not many can do this without a lot of practice. A lot of people have a tough time dissociating pelvic or hip motion and low back motion. Okay, that's why most people are slouching in their chairs nowadays. So every time they're bending from the hips, they think they also want to round their low back and pelvis. But what we want to do here is encourage a nice hip hinge so the spine can remain straight. So we're here, our hip is hinged, our chest is almost parallel to the ground, and then we have the shoulder blades locked back and the athlete can pull through. Or if we're trying to get more of a early vertical forearm position, we need to step a little further away. Once again, shoulder blades locked back. Then we're encouraging a high elbow position up front, but we're not allowing the shoulder to round or rock too far forward. When athletes, and this is another common mistake you'll see in not only this exercise, but a lot of exercise, athletes will be doing something like a row or even a pull-up. They'll be rounding their shoulders here, but what they need to do is retract those shoulder blades, keep a nice broad chest, so we can allow proper motion for our arms to move and our shoulders to be moving safely. Okay, so once again, the band bent over row when done with excessive volume in poor form, is only perpetuating the shoulder injury, the low back injury, and the overuse within the sport. If you do think this can benefit you, whether because you have a swimmer or you are a swimmer that has difficulties with the catch, use it sparingly, but with correct form and proper monitoring and so on to help you out, because it's not as easy as it looks.